Home prices are now north of $400K for the first time ever. I've got a full 10 reasons as to exactly why home prices are soaring and why seemingly no one can find a home in America anymore. You're going to see how we actually got to where we are today, the trends that made this happen, and if it's going to continue. Are we in for a total housing collapse? Make sure you stick around until the end of this video and you're going to have a full and complete understanding of how this goes all together. I think for the first time ever, I must be awfully proud of my 10 reasons. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold. This is GRE. Yes, Altos Research just informed us that the U.S. median home price just surpassed $400,000 for the first time in history. They've risen in price almost 20% annually. Homes are selling 3 times faster now than they were pre-pandemic. And back here last November, I was on television talking about why this home price acceleration should continue in 2022. I've been saying that for a while.
Is there any reason to think that house prices, this price appreciation, could slow down over the next 12 months or even decrease in price? Any reason to think that?
I think it's likely that home price appreciation will continue, but the rate of appreciation will slow down. But let me thoroughly answer that big question for you. What exactly are the reasons that home prices are rising stratospherically? And none of the 10 reasons are population growth. The first one is millennials. Contrary to popular belief, millennials do buy homes. I mean, they really buy homes. In fact, a whopping 43% of home buyers are millennials. That's the biggest group by far. And let me tell you why this matters. But first, just what is a millennial? They're anyone that was born between 1980 and 1998. Demographers parse that a little bit differently, but that's about age 24 to 42. They're also the largest generation in American history. Now, within millennials, the most populous age cohorts are age 25 to 34. And why is that so important that there's such a big group of people in these age groups? That's because they are just getting in to prime home buying age or even prime renting age, but having their own place, forming a household. That's why the demand for housing is really up. The second one is safety. Yeah, you might wonder, what does safety have to do with the rise in home prices? Now, this is one of those longer tail things that's been happening. Now, a prudent level of safety is good, but with decades of buildup of layering all these safety standards on top of one another, it has almost reached onerous levels. You need GFCI outlets, and you need more railings, and you need a carbon monoxide detector within 10 feet of every bedroom, and sometimes you need water heater restraining straps, and this all adds complication and time and expense to building a home. And see, because this raises the standards for all levels of housing, every one of them, that also applies to entry-level housing. It makes that affordability bar even higher, and that even increases homelessness when that occurs. Safety standards only seem to constrict, they don't seem to relax. The third of 10 is the pandemic, the space race, that race for space. Starting in 2020, the virus made people want to move to the suburbs for elbow room, and they kind of wanted to avoid any of those sort of housing amenities that you would correlate with densely populated areas, because people really didn't want to get into mass transit, and they didn't want to get into elevators either. And sure, we all know about the acceleration in the work from home trend and Zoom and all of that, but it's not just that. It's also that people are more likely to exercise and get on their Peloton bicycle at home, or garden, or greenhouse at home, or homeschool their children. Well, when you're doing everything from home, you sure are willing to pay substantially more for a home. And see, in a pandemic, families often stayed intact, but for those people in roommate situations, hey, when there were 2 roommates in a place, that didn't work any longer in a pandemic. So a lot of times, roommates split. Well, when you had 2 roommates occupying one residence and they split, and now you have 2 roommates occupying 2 residences, that increases the demand for housing even in the same population. And now a lot of people are deciding that they like to live by themselves long term. The fourth of 10 reasons is material shortages. Sometimes builders have to leave homes frustratingly close to being finished, like 95 or 98% finished, while they're just waiting on a garage door or cabinets or other fixtures to arrive. 5. So that increases builders' carrying time. It increases their carrying costs because it's that much longer that they need to pay interest on a loan and for all the other expenses until they can sell it. Supply chain disruptions slow down builders, and it also introduces enough uncertainty to make some builders not even want to build. And when builders do decide to build, they need to price in that risk for that scenario that I just described, and they need to pass that on to you. And if they don't build, that further constrains supply. The fifth one is what I call inflation nation. My goodness, is inflation the only thing still made in America anymore, or what? I mean, inflation pushes up the prices for all these individual components of a home, from lumber to copper to drywall to more. You know what's funny? So many of the same people that wanted to get paid to stay at home and wanted $15 stimulus checks and wanted government shutdowns of businesses and wanted $15 minimum wage, those same people are the ones that are now complaining about inflation. And understand that the 8% government inflation reported, my gosh, that still doesn't even include the effects of the war in Eastern Europe. That hasn't even been factored in to that figure yet. Number six is government regulation. This is another one of those long tail things, a lot like the safety. Over the decades, all these various regulations continue to mount. We're talking about things like zoning compliance and permitting requirements and neighborhood restrictions and NIMBYism and population density limits. They have all conspired to limit new building, and this increases the land cost as well, the cost of the land that the home gets built on top of. The seventh of 10 reasons why home prices are soaring are low interest rates. Yes, they're not as low as they were, but they're still really historically low. They bottomed out in January of 2021. And now rising rates, they're an incentive for buyers to want to lock in sooner. The other thing that this rising interest rate environment is doing is that people that already have a home are really reluctant to move. They want to stay there and hold on to that home, and they might even keep it as a rental before they move into another home. They don't want to lose that low rate, so therefore that home never comes onto the market, and that further constricts supply from the mortgage interest rate angle. Increasing mortgage rates often correlate with higher home prices, not lower ones. Almost everyone thinks it's the other way around. I explained that phenomenon recently on the channel, so I'm not going to get into all of that again. The short story is that mortgage rates have less to do with home prices than a lot of people think. Home prices actually have more to do with economic and demographic factors, like I've been talking about, than they do mortgage interest rates. And you know, I've been talking about this since last year. It was kind of making me feel like real estate's mortgage rate iconoclast until just recently the New York Times published an article basically corroborating much of what I've been saying. So, hey, maybe they watch here. Hello, New York Times. Hey, be sure to leave a like on the video while you're watching too. The eighth reason is equity. And right now, homeowners have a record amount of equity. Equity is the value of the property that you own minus what you owe on the mortgage. And you might be wondering, now what would historically high equity positions have to do with soaring home prices? Well, what this means is increasingly, if someone does want to move, they can pay all cash for a home. And therefore, they can just bowl over these wannabe first-time homebuyers. They're just trying to patch together a 20% down payment. All right, so what does that really do? Well, it pushes up prices because if you have an all-cash offer, you don't need an appraisal, and all-cash offers are also completely immune to mortgage interest rates. All-cash buyers don't need a mortgage, and here's the crazy thing. Right now, the American loan-to-value ratio is 31%, just 31%. Sheesh, I mean, some people, they need to be using more leverage. They need to be making a better use of other people's money. Another way to say that is the average American homeowner has an equity position more than 2/3 of the value of the house. So yeah, they've really got more money to pay all cash, which pushes up prices.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
Millennials want to buy, but boomers hold the wealth. The ninth reason that home prices are soaring is low housing supply. Keep your eye on the supply. You know I've talked about this extensively elsewhere, but what really happened is following that 2008 to 2011 global financial crisis, we were in an overbuilt condition, and what people in those trades, what contractors did is they left that industry after the housing collapse. And they're still aren't enough skilled tradespeople to build new homes. So this really ensures a lengthy period where we're going to have this dearth of housing inventory. We're not just going to pop out of it next year. This is a really inelastic condition. We now need a staggering 300 to 500% increase in supply just to bring things back into balance between supply and demand. Not to be oversupplied, just simply to bring things into balance. That's going to take a long time. And it's even worse for entry-level homes. You know, this is exactly the exact mechanism that leads to higher prices. Okay, if you would have more supply and say there would only be 2 offers on one home, well, that doesn't tend to push up the prices very much. But when supply is so constrained that now you have 20 bidders on one home, it's almost surely going to go for substantially more than asking price. That's exactly a huge reason why home prices are soaring. Low supply. Low supply is what induces bidding wars. The 10th and final reason is affordability, and I think this is going to be the real estate run-up's Achilles heel. Once affordability goes away, soaring house prices will too. And affordability does keep diminishing, and I think it's going to keep getting worse. But you know what? Affordability is not as bad as what people think. Because of higher incomes and lower mortgage rates, real house buying power adjusted prices are still a full 29% below their 2006 peak. And you know, I think the important thing to understand, and it goes along with this affordability, is buyers don't make a purchase decision based on the price of the home. Almost no one does that. You know what they do? Buyers make a purchase decision based on the affordability of the monthly payment amount. It's that payment amount. So to kind of summarize and reiterate of what I have said all along here is this year, home prices should continue to keep rising for so many of the reasons that I outlined, but that growth rate should slow. And there are really 2 primary things that can stunt high house price growth. Number 1 is supply, but that's not going to be a factor anytime soon. I already talked about its inelasticity, about how it's going to be difficult to bring more housing out of the market pretty soon. It's that second one, that affordability. That's the Achilles heel. At some point, an affordability constraint has got to be reached as wages don't keep up with prices. But of course, all real estate is local, and today I've been informing you about the national housing market. That's an important thing to keep in mind. And you know, let's also get some context too. Broadly here, speaking internationally, you know, if you're a viewer of this and you're in another developed nation like Canada or Australia or New Zealand, you're like, what are you talking about with high home prices? In all those nations, you're paying substantially more for housing than you do in the United States, even at current prices. Hey, well, leave a comment below. And when you leave a comment, I am going to try to reply to it myself. You know it's me because I'll put Dash Keith after the answer. Those are 10 big reasons about why home prices have been soaring and a little bit of information on the future direction of them. What do you think about those? And can you think of a good 11th reason? Go ahead and leave a comment. I'm Keith Weinhold. Thanks so much for stopping by.